What's up everyone and welcome to today's video, which is another case study for one of our e-commerce clients here on Google Ads. And we spent about 4.5 million with that client in total, making back about 16 million. It's New Zealand dollars, so a bit less than USD. Nonetheless, a fairly good volume level for Google Ads, considering that most brands spend a lot less on Google than on Facebook, for example. We haven't worked with them the entire, 5-year time frame that this account has been around, but we're with them for quite a time frame now, helping them scale, optimize, push forward, testing new angles. And the main things I want to cover in today's video are the following. First of all, what stops most brands from scaling, and specifically from scaling when an account is already in decent shape. Like this account had a good account structure. The owner knew what he was doing, they were not making absolute rookie mistakes like not having tracking and only focusing on brand search, the usual suspects. I think it's quite interesting to know what to do when you are already doing better and you really want to get to that next level, which can sometimes seem very difficult. And second of all, I want to primarily focus on PMAX and search, not as usual PMAX only or PMAX and shopping, because search is super important for us with that particular business. So with that in mind, let's dive right in and let's, for example, have a look at our search performance. And as you can see, when I open when I filter just by search campaigns, we had 71 campaigns total, and a good chunk of that is active right now. As you can see, this one here, and all the others that you can see right there. And something that is very important to know is only a tiny fraction of our search ad spend, or our ad spend in general, goes towards brand. So when you see this right here by the ROAS numbers, I think it's pretty clear which of these is actually a brand campaign. I think you can tell it's the one right there. So we spent 79K lifetime over 5 years, New Zealand dollars on brand, which is not that much, right? We have some smaller brand campaigns. This is like the top 10. We have some smaller ones for like very small countries. This is our absolute number one main brand campaign. But the total ad spend of this compared to our 4.5 million, not 45 million, is relatively small, considering that many larger brands spend a quarter, a third, half of their total ad spend on brand. I've seen it all, very, very wild. So this is a cold one. This is cold. This is cold. This is cold with a bit of a brand mix here and there, because it's a very, ambiguous term sometimes, but the vast majority of that is cold. And what I want to do now is I want to start this off by actually looking closer into a Google search campaign and telling you what to do when you want to scale, when you have a little bit of a proof of concept with search, but you wonder how to now scale it to the next level, what you can do, you increase the budgets, things die off, and so on and so forth. So we're now in the search campaign right there, and as you can see, we have a handful of active ad groups, but many of them are paused now. This is the ad group that we are using at this time, spending a bit more than 100K on this ad group here alone. And the first thing that you need to know about scaling search when you struggle to really, push it forward is you need to try and test more angles, okay? So all these different ad groups that you can see right here, and there are 29 of them in total, they were not just regurgitating the same things in like slightly different variations. I see this all the time when I audit accounts, right? They have a search campaign, and what they do is they, duplicate it like 15 times. They just change the match types all the time, from phrase to broad to phrase to exact, mixing it all up and then having like maybe one tiny little keyword in there that is different from the others. What we're doing here, what we're being focused on, is we want to actively, we knew that something was working. We're selling pet products in here. And we said, okay, what can we do in order to go broader with our, targeting with our keywords without sacrificing on ROAS too much? So what we did was we gradually looked at our search terms and went through the keyword planner, etc., to find out what are some deviations from the main keywords. So here what you see is that our search impression share is only lifetime at 33%, which is not that high, but it's something that you see in search very often. Very often you see like less than 10, right? Because your search impression share is so low. And we knew that there are certain keywords that we can scale very well. Like all of these here are profitable, right? 3.9, 5.4, 4.8, very profitable. But sooner or later in search, you run into this massive ceiling where if you want to make more, you need to drastically increase your bids, or you need to drastically lower your targets, or you have to switch to max conversion value or something. Instead, what we did here is we said, okay, how can we branch out into way more angles and, for example, switch something? Let me give you an example, right? Let's say we're selling, pet food instead of what we're actually selling. And we are saying, okay, we have this pet food made of chicken, and now we want to go broader. We want to test different angles as well. And we go with pet food in general. We go with pet food with meat. We go with all kinds of things. And what we do is we pre-qualify people with our ad copy so that they are still more likely to buy from us than if we were just generalizing too much, okay? And this ultimately had a two-way framework, let's say. So this campaign spent $450,000 on pure cold search, just this one search campaign. And there are two main things that you need to do here. The first is we iterate through ad groups, as I said, right? We come up with edit keywords. We look at, okay, if we switch phrase match to broad match, does the edit volume offset sort of the slightly lower CPA and or slightly lower ROAS that you typically get when switching to broad? Sometimes it even increases. But the point is you cannot stand still with the same exact keywords and keep switching things around without making actual changes to the keywords, the ads, etc. I see this all the time, that people want to basically do all the scaling and optimization just by saying like, okay, let me adjust the bits, let me add more, duplicate the same keywords over and over again. That doesn't work. So we are broadening the ad groups that we're using for this campaign, because that is something that can massively increase your spend if you are, widening the funnel a little bit while still being highly relevant, of course. The second is tailoring the landing pages. And this is something that we're getting more and more involved with all of our clients, right? We help them structure new pages. And the important point here is this is not a super high workload activity, right? It's not that we're reinventing their entire site and it's like, it takes 8 weeks or something to get something done. We literally tell them, hey, here's something that we would really like to test. We think that would be good to have a separate landing page. You can literally duplicate what you have, make a bunch of adjustments to it, and now we can use this for this slightly changed ad group that was previously unprofitable, but now with this, fully optimized ad funnel, and now with this adjusted landing page that maybe took like an hour to make or something, right? Maybe two, if any. It could be way less than that. Now suddenly this new ad group performs extremely well. And this is something that I will show you now with a bunch of examples. So back in the account here, this is one of the cases where we had to get a creative, set up. This one here as well. This one here partly too, and then some of the smaller ones that you can see here at the bottom, those are individual tests. Are we doing some tweaks and tests as well? This one here, for example, with a slightly lower ROAS, which is still all in all cold traffic, decent for us, but it's not that great. But you see that some of those yielded really good results, eventually died off, whether it's seasonal or other reasons. But the point is that you can, if you follow that process of actually saying, yes, I'm iterating through the ad groups and then I'm tailoring the landing pages if I have to. You don't always have to. Sometimes you can scale to 50,000 a month in ad spend in a single search campaign without ever tweaking anything on the page. But especially if you're a direct-to-consumer brand with like only a select amount of products, like these guys here, they don't have that many products, then it can make sense to create alternative versions where you're really talking about different angles, different pain points that your customers have, and so on and so forth. And this will suddenly give you like massive opportunities for volume. And people are thinking way too narrow when they're sending like all this traffic, all the broad match stuff on a single product page. Like this now has to convert. So this is extremely important for the entire search part. All right, with search now covered, I want to talk about the PMAX aspect. And of course, as you might have already guessed, PMAX was round about pretty much exactly half of our total ad spend. 2.3 million went into PMAX. We didn't spend that much on shopping, which is why I don't want to cover shopping here too much. But those are all the different PMAX campaigns. And as you can see right here, the biggest that we had so far actually is paused now for a very good reason. Now we have this one active, which has a better total ROAS. We have this one here, which is the smaller version, and then we have some others too. I want to now go through the different PMAX things that we were actively sort of focused on. Now, in my opinion, the most important thing that you need to sort of understand when it comes to PMAX and that you need to do properly is understanding how to actually test and how to actually optimize Performance Max campaigns. I have an entire super long video on this channel where I'm literally only talking about PMAX optimization and scaling, which is an hour long. So feel free to watch it right after that one right here. But for the time being, what you can see here are all of our different asset groups, right? So yeah, I have still my blurring tool here with my mouse, which is why you see this little blue thing here. But anyway, so you see all the different clicks. And the thing that you want to look out for when testing and optimizing PMAX is you want to absolutely, of course, spot outliers. So much of the PMAX testing that I see is not really powerful at all, because what people are doing is they are focusing on sort of the wrong things to test, right? They are sort of duplicating a very, very similar asset group, like same products, very like the same assets or almost the same assets and almost the same audience. And the problem with that is what happens is you will get fairly random results, okay? So first of all, you have a very high risk that the results across these asset groups will be super similar, just because they are so similar by themselves that with enough ad spend, sort of regression to the mean, they will all perform give or take the same. You will still see discrepancies just because of, you know, how the algorithm works, and in the end, you still have people in front of the screen that are buying your stuff, but you won't typically see one asset group doing like a 2x ROAS and the other one like a 6.5 or something, right? So here we see a fairly diverse set, still not like crazily, you know, different. We have other PMAX campaigns where we've tested a ton more. Also, don't wonder about the audience signals not having something provided. There is a reason for that too. But basically, you see that there is a range 3.1, 4.5, 3.8, 3, 4.7. So we have been doing a lot of testing with this campaign and still are, because this is one of our, you know, focus campaigns at the moment. I want to show you now what you need to focus on when you want to optimize and scale a PMAX campaign properly. So let's go back in here, and what you need to understand is the PMAX testing framework, as I sometimes call it. So you have 3 different things that you can test and optimize for with PMAX, and you should do this in the following order. The first is products, okay? At the most fundamental level, of course, what you want to test is which product to use in PMAX. There are many strategies to go about this. So for example, what we do here at Cartlift for our clients is we look through all their products, we group them by, first of all, levels of performance, right? Did they perform really good, decent, did they overspend? Did they get no traffic at all? Are they just lurking in the account? Are they generating sales but they are unprofitable? Are they super profitable but just getting like random sales every now and then? For all of these cases that I just described, there is a perfect strategy to go about it, right? Like a product that has never really sold anything, you shouldn't probably use alongside a super, super high performance product that is trying to get more money by Google, right? So that it can spend and also sell more. At the same time, something that sells all the time, let's say 20 times a day, but is just unprofitable or always just on the edge of like break even, you probably need to go back to the drawing board and you need to optimize this, right? You need to look at, okay, this product is selling all the time, but it's unprofitable or it's just breaking even. So it's not really bringing that much unless you have a ton of repeat customers. So what you need to do then is you need to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, if I want to keep this product here, right, I need to go back and, for example, completely change the targeting. Or, as you will see here now, which is second most important, I have to try completely different assets. So let's say you have one of these products that is selling all the time, so it's technically a bestseller, but how the hell do you now get that profitable? One answer to that might be you completely change the product listing in Merchant Center, right? You change everything about it. We had many cases, like what I just described, where a product was just on the edge of profitable, 0.7% click-through rate, getting good impressions, getting a decent CPC like $1 or whatever. And we completely tweaked this for like 4 weeks on end. Every week we made a new adjustment. You know, we compared it to the previous one and we looked at, okay, how does this image perform with this set of, you know, putting it into the campaign and this title, and is there something else that we can do? And on the campaign side, how do we structure it? Is it now more in shopping or in PMAX? In this case, of course, we're talking about PMAX, but when you tweak this product, you can turn something that was selling but unprofitable into something that is selling and profitable, right? Because the moment that, let's say, your ROAS is 20% higher, 30% higher on that product that was selling well, so you know it's a winner in that sense, now it's also profitable and now the entire thing changes. So it's very important that you keep that in mind when you talk about products. Now, the second layer, as I said, assets are the second most important because people spend way too much time on PMAX audiences, right? They are like going ahead saying, okay, I want to target that audience here and that audience and that audience and that and that and that. And this will serve me well, very well. But what they don't see is that there is like literally that big of an overlap, right? Like, yeah, beautifully drawn. But basically what I want to say here is that if you test 7 different audiences on a Google PMAX campaign, there is some value to it, I won't deny. But certainly when you've spent a ton of money, there isn't that much of a value anymore because PMAX is already optimizing for the right person anyway, and they are going beyond your targeting anyway. And second of all, because there is so much overlap in the first place, right? It's not really fully statistically significant test anyway. So if you target this audience and you target that audience and there is that big of an overlap, right, what is the purpose of directing money into that asset group and money into that asset group when you're not having any sort of a clear test? I understand with Google you will never be able to get that much of a clear test as, for example, on Facebook, but nonetheless, you should focus on optimizing and changing and testing assets. I cannot emphasize that enough. These days we do asset production for our clients with, AI tools and all kinds of things and text overlays, or we guide them on how to do it. But the point is we are super active and focused on the entire asset game. You don't need them to, spend 6 figures a month on Google. Don't get me wrong. You don't need to go crazy with assets and videos and all these kind of things, because now I hear you say, hey, I signed up for Google because I don't want all that stuff. I just want my shopping and search ads and not produce any images. I feel you, and we have cases where we scaled, to 7 figures in monthly revenue without any assets. But this is what you need to, be testing second of all, after you have the products and everything structured in PMax. And then last but not least, of course, you have the audience sort of as the third, and I would say smaller, less important thing, right? So yes, if you test your historical converters against a very broad affinity audience. When I say converters, I mean like a lookalike similar audience, right? Not targeting your actual converters. So there is some value in that, of course. And yes, if you target a very specific custom audience or in-market audience, we have done lots of testing in this account here where we are, for example, going for one of our product's main features or main benefits rather. And we completely tailor an asset group around that. We go very heavy with the spend, and it actually performed very well because all our headlines, all our images were somewhat focused on this one single benefit right there, okay? Depending on what you sell, you can do exactly the same, but you can only do so much of it. So that's why, and this, by the way, is still kind of more of an asset thing, right? But yes, the audience plays a role here. Yes, you should test it initially. Yes, initially it makes sense to go through it and see how it goes. But the goal with PMax is that sooner or later, that you have your performance audiences, let's say, and that all you're doing afterwards is focusing on assets and products, right? And of course, campaign structure and adjusting targets and budgets if necessary. But you don't want to test audiences all the time, because at some point you will have gone through all of those anyway. And that's basically what we have done with this client here at scale. I mean, this is just one of the PMax campaigns, one of the many PMax campaigns that we have here in this account. In a nutshell, we have followed this framework all the time, right? Even with asset groups with zero assets, so feed only, but we also have asset only. So we have the whole thing. And this is ultimately how we're now sitting at around about $60 million in revenue. The next Q4 will hopefully be our next peak. Now we're just getting started. 2nd of October, November will be very, very crazy with this brand again, running crazy sales. And this is something that I will be making another video on. So if you don't want to miss out on that, if you want to see a Q4 pre-planning strategy setup, then make sure to subscribe to this channel to not miss out on that. And if you say, hey, I have an e-commerce brand too, I want to scale it, I don't know how exactly to do it, I ran into an invisible ceiling, then I recommend that you check out our site here, Cartlift. You can watch this video where I show you our entire 3-phase framework and how I, would go about the same in your brand in like a very simple, straightforward, no pressure call, so that you understand what's possible with your business as well. This being said, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to see you in the next video again, and bye-bye.